Namaskar, everyone, and sincere thanks to each and every one of you for joining IHU Weekly Educational Discourses. IHU is an online Hindu university, religious institution recognized by the state of Florida. It is our distinct privilege and honor to have our Acharya Swami Vijayananda Ji as our speaker. Swami Vijayananda Ji is a scholar of Vedanta, Hinduism, and physics. By profession, Vijayananda Ji is a state of Florida licensed medical health physicist. For the last 20 years, he has been with 21st Century Oncology, now USA Genesis Care, as a medical health physicist, and is a part of an oncology team involved in delivering effective treatments for cancer patients. IHU is very fortunate to have Swamiji as one of the trustees and also as a spiritual advisor.
Vagartau viva sampraktau Vagartha pratipathayem Jagatah pitarau vande Parvati Parameshwarau Om Nidaye Sarva Bhidyanam Bishajhe Bhavaroginam Gurave Sarva Lokhanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaham Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhaghine Vyomavad Vyapta Dhehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaham Vandravandane Irandavan Innarul Nindranan Moondenul Nanga Unarndanan Aindu Vendranan Aru Virindanan Yolumbat Chendranan Than Irundan Urandu Yette. The verses that I sang just now in Tamil are from a saint whose recorded history is almost on a very conservative scale, 4,000 years minimum, could be 5,000 years or 7,000 years. Now, if I tell you that this number 108 is the basis of entire cosmic creation, it's not an exaggeration. And the reason is creation, cosmic creation, this prapancha, this cosmos, how it was created. Adi Shankaracharya gives us a brief description in his Tattva Bodham under a section called Jagat Ki Utpatti. Jagat Ki Utpatti. So now this Jagat Ki Utpatti in Adi Shankaracharya's Tattva Bodham is nothing but a little elaboration of what is already stated in the Vedas and what was already stated by Tirumular. But it was Tirumular who exactly pinned it to this number 108. And this is like, I'm talking about 4,000 years ago. Before we didn't even know that the earth was like a globe, spherical. Before we didn't even know that the earth was going around the sun. Before we didn't know that the earth was rotating around itself. Now, before I explain further, let me give you a little story, because a lot of people don't know who this great saint was. And our ashram in Tiruvannamalai is named after him, because there's nothing that he hasn't talked about, right from medicine to the topmost knowledge of Vedanta. He has talked about Tantra, he's talked about Yantra. There's nothing that he hasn't talked about. Tirumular is no one else but a great rishi from the Kailash. His name was Sundaranar. Now this rishi from Kailash, as you see on the left side, wants to go and meet with Agastya in the south. So it's not only during the time of Adi Shankara that the south and the north met each other, but 5,000 years ago this happened. that the north and the south and the east and the west always meeting each other, always there was this one tremendous area of Bharat, the Desha. So there was nothing like divisions. So everybody was one. The river from Ganga Jal was taken all the way to Rameshwaram. And Rameshwaram Tirtham from the ocean was taken all the way to Banaras for Kashi Vishwanatha. So all this tradition was established centuries ago for bringing about that unity. So in such a manner, much before all this, one of you need to mute your microphone, please. Much before all this, Tirumular, who was a saint, who was a rishi in Kailash, wanted to visit and see Agastya, another great rishi, who was in the mountains in the southern India, the Western Ghats. So on his way down, he worships at all the Jyotirlingas, Sri Sailam. Every Jyotirlinga he worships. Finally, he comes to Tamil Nadu to worship a temple near Tiruvavadurai. It's a big Shiva temple, it's a huge Shiva Lingam. If you ever go there, please don't miss it. And then he is on the banks of River Kaveri in a little wooded area. And then he is sitting under a tree, like you see in the picture. And all of a sudden, at a distance, not too far, he's seeing this crowd of cows that's huddled together. The cows are huddled together, looking at something on the ground. They're all together in one place, looking at something on the ground, and they don't seem to be moving that much. So, and they seem to be little upset or mourning. So he, being a saint, with a lot of compassion, he wants to go and see what's happening. So lo and behold, when he comes close to the herd of cows that are huddled together, he sees that the cow herd who was taking care of these cows was bitten by a snake. As you see in this picture, there's a snake there on the top of this picture, bitten by a snake and is dead. So Tirumular is overtaken by compassion. Now, Tirumular is a great Siddha, and he knows all this Astama, Siddhis, Anima, Mahima, Garima, Lahima, and all that. And he also knew the science, like Adi Shankara, of leaving his body and then entering into another body. So that's exactly what he does. He said, in order to relieve the suffering of these cows, I'm going to do this. So he leaves his body in one place, hides it, and then enters into the cowherd's dead body. So the cowherd, his name was Moolan, and he is alive now. So all the cows are happy. So now Moolan, who is Tirumular himself, who is Sundaranar, now drives the cows back to the village. And when all the cows have gone, he is returning. He's starting to return to the forest to get back into his body. But you know what happened? Moolan's wife, he says, what happened to you? कि भूत तो नहीं लग गया तुमको, क्या अभी तो सुबह तो गए तुम, ठीक थे, अब क्या हो गया? कोई पिशाच तो नहीं मार दिया तेरे को? So she couldn't understand why he wants to go back. Then he says, I'm not your husband. This Sundaranar says, I'm not your husband. She looks at him. Only in America they say this. Morning they go as husband, and evening they come back and say, I'm not your husband. So this is India. You don't say those things. So what happened to you? What happened to you? So then he says, no, I'm not really your husband. Then she makes a lot of hullabaloo and gathers this little crowd of villagers. And they all come, panchayat. That was the court system in those days. So the village panchayat is there, and they interrogate him, and they are convinced that this is not the cowherd that left in the morning. This is a great saint. And they try to convince this lady, let him go, because what he says is true. And then this is for the good of humanity. So they let him go. She lets him go reluctantly. And then he comes back to see that his body where he left was mutilated by animals. So then he closes his eyes and realizes this is all Shiva's plan, that he is supposed to be in this body of this cowherd. His name was Moolan. And then he takes upon this name Thirumular instead of Sundaranar and sits under this peepal tree that you see on the picture for 3,000 years. Baisab, I'm not joking. This is for real. He sits there for 3,000 years in Samadhi because there is historical evidence for all this. And then every year he'll open his mouth and recite 4-line verses called Thirumantiram. Mantiram. So like that for 3,000 years, this collection is 3,000 verses, 4-line verses, 3,000 passages called Thirumular Thirumandiram. So that is Thirumular's story. And this is after him we named our ashram because like I said, there is no other saint as great as he was. Not only he was a saint, but he gave us all this practical wisdom, advanced yoga, Shiva yoga, Siddha yoga, Vasi yoga, you name it. Tantra yoga, mantra yoga, how to do, everything that's in the Agamas and the Vedas is in this 3,000 verses of Thirumular. The very first verse that he starts with is this 108, secret of 108, the one that I was talking about. Vandravandane, he is only one. Irandavan Innarul, because of his compassion, he is with Shakti. Shakti is compassion. Arul means compassion. So Shakti is always love. Devi is love and compassion. So he became two. One is him, unmanifest. Then when he became two, half of him. In every pore of him, this Shakti. It's not exactly half. It's all mingled together. Like the color of white is mixed, cannot be separated from milk. Shakti cannot be separated from Shiva. But since we cannot represent it like that, we show Shiva and Shakti as half and half. But they are in every pore of each other. So that's what he says, Irandu, number 2. Irandu avan innarul. Number 2 is his grace. Nindranan Moondrinul. Then he became 3. That 1 became 2 and the 2 became 3. What is the 3? Icha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti. So that's how the creation comes about now, starting to create. Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra. It's not Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. That is a very wrong statement. It's always Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra. Shiva is beyond all this. Shiva is unmanifest. Like I said, he is the only one, that unmanifest, formless. Vedas say this. Saiva Siddhantam says this very clearly. Vyakta, Vyakta, Nirupitincha Paramam. 5th phase of Lord Shiva is unmanifest. So it's never Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. It's Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra. So he creates this 3. So 2 was his compassion. 3 is his manifestation into creator, maintainer, and resolver. Not destroyer, resolver. A flower is never destroyed. A flower is resolved into a bud. A flower is resolved into a fruit. So these are stages of evolution. So it's Nindranan Moondranal. He was 1, with the Devi he is 2, and with the Trinity he is 3. Nanga Unarndanan. Now this culminates in this creation. Now he just jumps all the intermediate steps and says it culminates in creation. And he is in all these created beings as the 4th state of consciousness, which we talked about last time. Shivam, Turiyam, Shantam, Chaturtam. In all of us, he's as the 4th major state, which is awake all the time. Whether you're sleeping, whether you're dreaming, whether you're awake. During all this state, there is one person who is always awake and watching what's going on. So that is the Turiya state. Tulsidas beautifully says in Rudra Ashtakam. Anyway, so Nindranan Moondranil Nangu, that is number 4. Turiyam. Nan Aindu Vendranan. So through this Panchabhutas, he manifested and culminated in a human form that has with a 6th sense. So in between the 1 sense beings, 2 sense, 3 sense, 4th sense, 5th sense, now the human beings with the 6th sense or Virindan, and that's where it culminates. So then after he culminated in the human beings, the Erlumbar Chandran, and he permeated this whole lokas, 7 lokas above, 7 lokas down, that is number 7. Then finally, where did he settle? Than irundan unarndi ette. He finally, to summarize this whole thing, Sirmular says, now finally his manifestation is into these 8 divisions. What are those 8 divisions? The Panchabhutas. Panchabhutas, Agni, Vayu, water, land, and then space. So Akasha, all this is the Panchabhutas. Then we say Tirumular, we cannot see. What is the Panchabhutas? You know, we can feel the air, we can see the space, but we give us a concrete example where we can worship close to us. Okay, sun and the moon. Worship him through the sun and the moon. He is also Lord Shiva's manifestation, sun and the moon. Then we say, Tirumulaji, that is also too far. We cannot go near the sun or the moon unless we have a rocket of our own. Anyway, so then he says, okay, no problem. He is very close to you in all the Jivarasis, in human beings, in all the animals. So that is finally where he settled Lord Shiva. So he is in each and every one of us, each and every one of you, each and every one of the beings, in me, in you, in everything. The one that guides you from within, that go this way, don't go that way, that silent voice of Lord Shiva. So that is Lord Shiva. So guide you till you reach that goal. So that he is in you. Than irundan unarndi ette. So now let's come back to our 108. So one I said, like I said, if you look at the slide, ever existing, eternal, transcendental Paratpara Parameshwara. Number 2, Shiva and Shakti, the dynamic aspect. And then that confers grace and compassion. And then number 3 is the 3 Murtis, 3 Shaktis, 3 Gunas, 3 genders, Pashupati Pasham, you know, the bondage. So that Pashupati Pasham is Saiva Siddhanta, that's another topic. 3 genders, man, woman, and then in between. So all that. So, and then the 4 avasthas, 4th state, waking, dreaming, sleeping, and Turiya. And then 4 Vedas, and then in the Saiva Siddhantam, Sariya, Kiriya, Yogam, Jnanam, and then Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, so on and on and on. I can give you all this, what is for number 4. So number 4. Number 5, Panchabhutas, through the Panchikaranam, he culminated in human beings, the Panchikriyas. Then he expanded into the pinnacle of human being, and there's a 6th sense. Then the 7 worlds, then the 8 manifestations. Good. 1 through 8 is fine. Now let's come back to the real deal. If you add all these numbers through what we call a decimal parity in mathematics, decimal parity is nothing but, that's just a jargon to say that you reduce any number to a single digit. That's decimal parity. Dr. Saab is here, he was a great mathematician. So, you know, so decimal parity, if you reduce all this 1, 2, 3, 4 through 6, you add that up and it becomes 36. So it is through 36 tattvas that I just finished telling you that Shatrimsa Tattvadikam. So he became that one, became the ultimately rested in 8, manifested into 8 through 36 tattvas. What's the number you have here? 36. Right? Now, if you reduce even the 36 to decimal parity to 1 single digit, that's 9. Now look at the Shivalingam. The bottom is 9. On the right side, on the top, Lord Shiva, Paratpara Parameshwara, the unmanifest, is 1. And we talked about in our previous classes that this form of Shivalinga is the form of the cosmos. That is what NASA says, and we have seen pictures last classes, that this is the whole universe. And then now this is creation. So this is these two together is what we have Shivalingam, that number 9. So that's ultimate number. So 1 ends in 8. So in between, so start with 1, we end up in 8. So what has happened to all the stages in between? They have metamorphosed into 0 because 1 changes into another. And finally, so in between, everything is reduced, everything is disappeared. And what Shiva has rested as number 8. So what you have here, if you make all this 0, because they're all changing states, evolutionary states that changed, that metamorphed, and finally rested in these 8. So started with 1 and then went through in between steps, becoming 0, and then ended as 8. So everything in between is finally 0. So that's what the Veda says. Vyakta vyakta nirupitincha param shatramsa Tattvadikam. So this 108, if I tell you that is the basis of creation, it's not an exaggeration. It's mathematics. And we'll see further. Now, I got interested in this 108 in 2016 when I was teaching the Rudram classes, giving discourses in them. I was discussing chapter 3, or third Anuvakam. Now, Rudram, Satarudriyam, is nothing but Vedanta. Rudram, all that it says is Lord Shiva is everywhere. He is in the divine and he is in the demon. He is in the dacoit as well as in the angel. So everywhere, this whole cosmos, the good, bad, and the ugly, everywhere Lord Shiva is. So Lord, there is no space, iota of space, no iota of creation where Lord Shiva is not. So that's what entire Rudram is about. But the beauty of it is, up to a certain point in Anuvakam 3, the Rudram describes Lord Shiva as the Lord of all this. Dishancha pataye namo, Pashunam pataye namo, Vrikshebhyo. So all this, you are the leader of this, leader of this, leader of this. And all of a sudden, in Anuvakam 3, from verse number 9, call it Yajus. So verse number 9, it changes. It changes the tonality. It changes that you are this, I worship you. Instead of being a leader, now it says, you are this, I worship you. So from that verse number 3 in Anuvakam 3, verse number 9 in Anuvakam 3, till the end of Anuvakam 9, Lord Shiva is described as being in every pore of this creation. Now, would you believe, I got interested and I started adding these verses, where the first verse starts to say that he is this, he is that. From that first verse, where it culminates in the 9th Anuvakam, I counted all the verses. You know how many there were? Exactly 108. Exactly 108. So the Shiva's Sarva Antaryamitvam, Sarva Atmakatvam, where he is Sarva Antaryami, he permeates everywhere. And Sarva Atma, in all the Atmas, inner ruler, he is a self in all. So from this onwards till 9 Yajus, from the 9th verse till the end of in Anuvakam 3, this 9 from verse number 9, there are 9 verses. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 have 99 verses. So 99 plus 9 in 108 verses, Lord Shiva presence as the Antaryami, as Sarvatmaka is described in 108 verses. Exactly. Now, how did this happen? Did somebody have a computer and do this? No. Our entire philosophy was, the entire principle of knowing things was not to go out there and look for it, but go in there and know it. That was the entire philosophy. Not go out there and look for it, but go in there and know it. That's exactly what we did. That's what Patanjali beautifully says, that once you go inside, it's Ritambara Prajna, it's truth-filled consciousness. Once you go in there, you have all the knowledge. The emphasis after the British came has been on the wrong focus. You know, we were all made to exit our royal highway and then take some idiotic exits where we started pumping information into the heads of children, torturing them, memorize this, memorize that. Whereas the focus was to go within and know it. That royal highway was lost. So that's what Patanjali says. Ritambara Prajna, your conscience, Shuddha Chetana pe jao. Sab kuch mil jayega. Everything, your intelligence, your creativity, your knowledge will be comprehensive. I'll give you more examples to prove this. How going within is the field of all knowledge, is the home of all the knowledge. You know, you expand your consciousness. When you go to an ocean with this little tumbler, that's all the water you can take. So without expanding consciousness of the children, giving them the wrong thing and trying to pump in when their consciousness awareness is limited, is torture. is trying to fit like a 10-foot diameter circle in a 1 centimeter circle. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So, this is the number of verses. Anuvakam now 3, like I said, start 9 yajus, 9 verses. 4th, 17. 5th, 15 verses. 6th, 15. 7th Anuvakam 16. 8th Anuvakam 17. 9th Anuvakam 19. Total 108. कौन सी कंप्यूटर ने किया था इसको? Now, how many Upanishads are there? 108 Upanishads. And there is one Upanishad that tells there are 100 Upanishads. That name of the Upanishad is Muktika Upanishad. As a matter of fact, this is in Muktika Upanishad, this is a dialogue between Sri Ramji and Hanumanji. Hanumanji asked Ramji, Bhagwan, batao, mera bheda paar karne ka kya rasta hai? So this is what he says, all these Upanishads. Then the Ramji, this is Ramji's verse. Yeva mashtotara shatam. Ashtotara shatam means 108. Bhavana trayanashanam. That will destroy this worldliness. Jnana vairagyadam pumsam. Give you jnana vairagya and ultimate knowledge. Vasana trayanashanam. Grihitva ashtot. Then he repeats that. Ramji repeats that. There's 108 Upanishads again. Grihitva ashtotara shatam ye patanti dijotamaha prarabdha chaya paryantam. Your prarabdha karma, only that you have to bhog. After that, your sanchita karma will be destroyed. Jivan mukta bhavanti. 108 in Muktika Upanishad. And then Mukta Upanishad lists it. 108 beads in a Japamala. 108 Mukhya Shiva Ganas. Our Shastra read the Shiva Ganas are 108. How many gopis are in Vrindavan? 108. How many kshetras for Lord Vishnu? Divya kshetras, including the one in Nepal, Muktinath. 108 Divya kshetras. 108 devas and asuras together churn the Milky Ocean. 54 devas, 54 asuras. Come back to astrology. There are 12 rashis and 9 planets. 9 into 12, 108. And then every deity has this Ashtotra Shatanamavali, 108 names. It's not for nothing that we have this 108. 108 of names of Lord Vishnu, 108 names for Lord Ganesha, 108 names for Lakshmi Devi, 108 names for Saraswati, 108 names for Durga, 108 names for Kali, 108, 108, 108. Now, in nature, come back to nature. Dr. Piyush Ji would know this. There is this man from Italy, Leonardo Fibonacci, and he discovered this principle, the Fibonacci sequence in number. As nothing but, is very simply stated, that each number in the Fibonacci sequence is the sum of the 2 numbers that precedes it. Or, like I give you a sequence right here. So come to 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. Now 2 is a sum of 1 and 1. If you look at my arrow here. Now 3 is a sum of the previous 2, 2 and 1. 5 is a sum of 3 and 2. 8 is a sum of 5 and 3. So each number is a sum of the previous 2 numbers. Now 21 is a sum of 13 and 8. Now this is Fibonacci. That's where he stopped. Now in nature, we will just see in a while how that happens. Now, if you do decimal parity, what I in this Fibonacci stopped there, but this is where we went a little further. So if you do decimal parity of the first 24 Fibonacci numbers, what do you mean by decimal parities? Reduce every number to a single number. If it's already a single number, don't touch it. So nothing to reduce, it's already single. So let us start with 13 because it's a 2-digit. So when you reduce 13, if you see below, it's 4. And then reduce 21, it's 3. Reduce 34, it's 7. Right? Now reduce 55. 5 plus 5, 10. 1 plus 0, 1. Reduce 89, 17. 1 plus 7, 8. reduce 144, 4 and 4, 8, plus 1, 9. Reduce 233, 3 plus 3, 6, plus 2, 8. So on, and the first 24, this repeats itself. And if you add all this decimal parity numbers is 108. 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 2, 4, 7, 12, 20, 24, 27, 34, 35, 43, 52, 60, 68, 75, 81, 85, 86, 91, 97, 99, 99, 107, and 108. Fibonacci stopped halfway in the middle, but this is where we went. How this is in nature? How is the Fibonacci sequence in nature? When a tree grows, this is all the number of branches, first 2 branches, like what Tirumular said 4,000 years ago. Number 1 became 2, 2 became 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. So this is how we said that long time ago. So this is Fibonacci sequence right here. And the flower petals, this is the sunflower seeds. The sequence is arranged in Fibonacci series. Right from microcosm to macrocosm, this 108 is embedded by sub. Right to the spiral galaxies. Even the hurricanes follow these rules, unfortunately. The intensification of hurricanes takes place in a Fibonacci sequence. This is a shell called the Nautilus shell. The Nautilus shell grows in the Fibonacci sequence basis. Now, more mathematics, geometry. This is a pentagon, 5 corner. Each angle of a pentagon is 108. Namah Shivaya. Pinchakshari. More. So this is pentagon, right? 108, 108, 108, 108. More. Now come inside the pentagon. Connect all the 5 corners. What you get is a 5-point star. And what are the triangles in it? Apex of the triangle. 108, 108, 108, 108, 108. What is the another pentagon formed inside? 108, 108, 108. Now, what is a 5-point triangle? Bhai Sahib, that's what you see in the golden globe in your Ajna Chakra. Paramahamsa Yogananda describes it so beautifully. The 5-point star. The one you see on the right side is the emblem of Self-Realization Fellowship. Paramahamsa Yogananda's logo, the 5-star. Because when you're in meditation, you see this golden egg on your forehead, on the Ajna Chakra, and inside that golden egg, what you see is a 5-point star. Now, what is that 5-point star? X of what? Who said Sanatana Dharma is not scientific? Physicists have not even reached the edge of this universe. And already there was a saint in the 8th century, Manikavasa, who described the whole cosmos better than your Hubble telescope, better than your Planck satellite. This man gave such a description of the cosmos from the right where he was. What science? More mathematics. 108 is an abundant number. What's an abundant number? The sum of its proper divisions. 108 divisible by 1 is divisible by 2, all these numbers that you see here. So 108 is divisible by 108 1 time, divisible by 54 2 times, divisible by 36 3 times, and so on. If you add all this, the total is 280. So this total of the divisors is abundant. Abundant by how much? Abundant by 172. 108 is 108, and then the total of the divisors is 280. So how much the total of the divisors is more than 108 is 172. So you reduce that. Parity. 1 plus 7 plus 2 is 10. Finally reduce it. 1. Where do we get? It's an abundant number that reduces to 1. And it's a refactorable number. What is a refactorable number? And a number that is divisible by the counts of its divisors. So how many perfect divisors are there in 108? There are 12 of them. If you count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 divisors. So a number that is divisible by the count of its divisors. So if you divide 108 by 12, what do you get? 9. What is the Shiva Lingam? I just explained to you. 1 and 9. And 108 is a Harshad number. What's a Harshad number? An integer divisible by the sum of its digits. What's the sum of its digits? 9. And 108 divided by 9, 12. And you reduce that. Decimal parity, 3. Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra. Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti. 1 in the beginning, 9 at the end. The Shiva Lingam. And we call Nava Shakti, Nava Durga. What do you need proof for all this? We don't need, but there are people out there for these people. Nava Durga, 1 and 9. Astronomy. Astronomy. We're leaving from mathematics area, come to astronomy. There's more. There's no time to discuss all that. Distance between the sun and the earth is 93 million miles. How many miles? 93 million. Now, the diameter of the sun is about 0.86 million. You multiply 0.86 by our magic number 108. What do you get? You get the 93 million. In other words, you multiply the diameter of the sun by our magic number 108, and you get the distance. Okay, what about the moon? Distance between Earth and moon. 238,900 miles. Now, the diameter of the moon, 2,159 meters. You multiply that. What do you get? The distance between Earth and moon, 108. Okay. Now, diameter of Earth times 108 gives you the diameter of the sun. Astronomy. 108. Like I said, Tirumala said that long time ago. 108 is the basis of this creation. Now, this is the one I was talking about. His name was Manikavasagar. He was a minister in the Pandya kingdom in Madurai during 9th century. That's exactly his period. Now, he has written, composed megalith work called Thiruvachakam. Lord Shiva himself came and took it down from him, wrote it down when he was about to merge. When at the end of Shankara lived for 32 years, Manikavasagar lived exactly for 32 years. So at the end of 32 years, Lord Shiva came as an old man to his hut. And he said, "Oh, Manikavasaga, I have heard that you have sung all this glory of Lord Shiva." This happened in, I'm not giving you Purana or grandma stories. I'm giving you history. This happened in Chidambaram. So Manikavasagar was living in a hut in front of the temple, in a street in front of the temple. So one evening, an old man walks in there and he says, "Please come Padariyega." Then he says, "What can I do for you?" He says, "I have heard that you have sung the glories of Lord Shiva in so many forms, but nobody has taken it down. Can you recite that again?" He says, "It's been so long that I sang many verses during a period of time, but can you please try?" Then he tries, he says, "Okay, I will." So when you start with number 1 called Shiva Puranam, Namak Shivaya Valga, glory to Namak Shivaya. The mantra, he starts with mantra. He doesn't even say the feet of the Lord or Lord Shiva. He says, glory be to the Panchakshari, Namak Shivaya Valga. Then he comes to the feet of the Lord. Glory be to the feet of the Lord. Nadan Tal Valga. So on and so forth. He starts, and by the time it's done, it's about 8 hours into the night. Already late, and the temple was closed around 8 o'clock in the evening. So the old man has written everything down, and he took it with him and is gone. Now, next morning, the Dikshitars open the temple and go inside. Right at the steps of Lord Shiva in the Sanctum Sanctorum, this bundle of palm leaves with the very first leaf, palm leaf, with this statement, that dictated by Manikavasaha, returned on by Ambalavana, which means Lord Shiva. Dictated by Manikavasaha, returned on by Ambalavana or Nataraja. Nataraja himself signed that. That state that those palm leaves are still there. This is what he said about the cosmos. Andapagudin undai pirakam. Cosmos and the stellar systems born thereof are inconceivable nature and sight glorious to behold. In the relation to one another, they are over 100 crores. This is exactly what he said. When the entire world was thinking that we are living on a flat surface, this man gave a picture of the whole cosmos. And then he gave you an analogy to imagine that. He says, but this is what science says now. The Milky Way galaxy, we estimate there are tens of billions of solar systems in our galaxy alone. We live in this one itty-bitty solar system. And planet Earth in the solar system is a speck of dust. So think of tens of billions of solar system and the size of Earth, almost non-existent. And the size of a human being on planet Earth, almost 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, infinite zeros. So here we are, strutting around like a proud peacock. I did this, I did that. Arey bhai sahab, prapanch ki dekho, you are zero. So, billions of solar systems. And in one galaxy, how many galaxies there? So far, the 100 billion, 200 billion galaxies. Mario Livio, astrophysicist at the Space Telescope Science Institute, gave this information. And there's a website there if you want to go and check it out. So this is what Manikavasaha said, how many years ago? 1300 years ago. Now he gave an analogy. He says, this is how it looks like. He says, just as the specks of dust shining in the sun beam through, that's how this whole cosmos is shining. Sirionaha perion darin, the microcosmic atoms and the macrocosmic cosmos are of the same nature. Just as in the atom, so is the cosmos. And he says, even though this is as vast as I've described, and this vastness that I described, this 100 crores, is like an atom compared to his vastness. Lord Shiva's vastness, if you compare what I described, the 100 crores of galaxies, is nothing but like a speck of, not even a dust, like an atom. Siriya aha perion deriyin. That tells you the glory of Shiva. Such a tradition. That is why in Switzerland, like I mentioned in our last class, in the largest hadron collider, CERN, entrance, we have Nataraja. Because this mind-boggling, you cannot imagine the vastness. It's like a huge cauldron that is Shiva, and this whole cosmos is like a speck of dust in this cauldron. We cannot be that cauldron. we are contained in that cauldron. What kind of a telescope, what kind of a satellite did he have? He put the illumination in the sun, he put the coolness in the moon, he put the heat in the fire, he put spaciousness in the space, and energy and speed in the wind. நாள்தோறும் அருக்கனின் சோதி அமைத்தோன் திருத்தகு மதியில் தன்மை வைத்தோன் தின்திரள் தீயில் வெம்மை செய்தோன் பொய்தீர் வானில் கலப்பு வைத்தோன் மேதகு காலின் ஊக்கம் கண்டோன் நிழல்தகு நிகரில் இன்சுவை நிகழ்ந்தோன் வெளிப்பட மண்ணில் திண்மை வைத்தோன். And strength to uphold all in and on this earth. Now, therefore, coming back to little terrestrial things, in Ayurveda, they call that 108 pressure points, or what we call Marma Shastram. And then 108 degrees of Fahrenheit gives you a temperature at which the human body, vital organs begin to fail. At that time, what you do, like Markandeya did, call 108, which is the emergency number in India. And Markandeya, that's exactly what he did, called 108, Lord Shiva, and there he is. So Paratpara Parameshwara is our 108. Paratpara Parameshwara is your 911. Om Namah Shivaya. I'm done. For a change, finished on time today.
Swamiji,
Namaskar, Swamiji.
it was a
I know there's a lot of people have a lot of questions. Before we're going into the question and answer, I just want to acknowledge IHU Board of Directors and advisors. As I said before, Swamiji is IHU trustee and also IHU spiritual advisor. I saw Swamini Divyanandaji. Swamini Divyanandaji is also a spiritual advisor. She is the head of School of Divinity. And I see Shafali Mehta is in the audience. She is our chair of the board of directors. And Sri Gupta ji is the treasurer of IHU. And we're going to open the floor to questions. Go ahead, Piyush Bhai.
Swamiji,
Ji.
भाई आश्चर्यजनक भाषण है आपका.
Ji.
I learned so much today, brother. Very, very kind of you.
Shivji ki kripa.
आपके दर्शन करने आना पड़ेगा. ज्ञान जब भी मिलेगा आपके चरणों में बैठूंगा.